If there's one thing I will always miss from 80s and 90s cars, it's a sweet set of pop-up headlights. Every exotic car from the 80s and 90s had a set of these, and the Lotus Esprit is no exception. However, the pop-up headlights on my Lotus Esprit are actually pretty sad and malfunctioning. So today we're going to pull the motors out of the car and rebuild them with a simple kit that I bought off eBay. Pulling the pop-up headlight motors on the Lotus Esprit doesn't really take a lot of tools. You're going to need a 10mm socket and ratchet. I use a 10mm ratchet and gear wrench and a Phillips screwdriver. On the cars before ABS, it's pretty easy. You just have to pull this washer bottle out of the way, and you've got reasonable access to the headlight motor. On the later cars that have ABS, it's quite a bit bigger struggle. The first thing I usually undo is the arm, this nut right here, and that releases this arm from the motor. And then you've got 1, 2, there's a third one a little further down, 3 mounting bolts. And you've also got this little collar that helps with the stability. And I'm going to try and remove it at the Phillips, but I may have to actually remove it at this 8mm right here. Take note of the number of washers and the rod. In this case, I only had the nut on this side, and there's 3 washers on the back side. If you can't get the rod off, you can manually turn the headlight motor to move it into a different position that might help you. Or if your motor is completely trashed like mine, you can just move the rod manually. My motor is completely loose at this point, but I still need to undo the electrical connector, which is a 2-pin GM weather pack type connector that in this case is held in by a factory Lotus zip tie. Well, I thought I had it out, but what I forgot is you have to actually remove the entire little crankshaft arm here off the motor, so you have to undo this nut as well. The alignment doesn't really matter because the motor controller self-adjusts for whatever position. So, how much does it cost to rebuild the pop-up headlight motors off a Lotus Esprit? $800? No, $8. Fortunately, these motors are sourced from a GM car, so I want to say a Firebird. And what actually goes wrong is there's sort of a little slipper clutch built into here in case there's some sort of obstruction on the motor. And what goes wrong is the little pellets inside the slipper clutch disintegrate over time. So all we got to do is pull this thing apart, take the gear out, replace the pellets, and put it back together. And what you need to take it apart is a 1/4-inch socket. These are asymmetrical, so if you're going to take both off the car at the same time, be sure and label them left or right. I've marked this one as left. Struggling a little bit because I've got corrosion there. It may come out as an assembly. Believe it or not, that dust is all that remains of the original pellets. So you clean out all of the dust that remains of the original pellets out of the housing and off of the, we'll call it a clutch assembly. I'll clean this a little more, but I'm going to make it short for the video. And then all you do drop in the new pellets and line them up, push it back together, and then reassemble into the motor. Headlight motors and the kind of pockets where they sit in the front, a quick coat of black paint. So while we're waiting on the paint to dry, there's something you need to do to every Lotus Esprit, and that is when you've got the headlights disconnected, you can actually raise it beyond. I'm gonna have to shut the hood to go further, and you need to clean out this area underneath the headlights. There should be a drain there, and many times it fills up, it gets obstructed by all this crud, and then it starts filling up with water. And what happens is when you shut your headlights, you're actually dipping them in a bath of water, so they end up rusting pretty quickly. And I've seen this happen on the nicest of Esprits. So I'm gonna clean this out and clear up the drain. With the headlight motors disconnected, you can just overextend the headlight so that you can get in there and clean up all this disgusting stuff. Much better now. I think this is the best paint on the entire car. One thing that I think is really cool is on Lotuses you can find little handwritten serial number marks and stuff on each car. So if I'm right with the way Lotus numbers cars, that means this is the 17th car built that year that was destined for the United States. Assembly is basically the reverse of removal, and now we've got a set of rad 80s pop-up headlights on our exotic Lotus Esprit. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like or subscribe button. Thanks!